Hi, I'm Liz. I'm 29 years old. I'm a regular attender at The Gathering Place, and this is my story of hope. I was diagnosed in 2019 with a stage 3 astrocytoma, which is a type of brain cancer. I had a generalized seizure in late 2018, sort of out of nowhere, and we found that I had a brain tumor about the size of a plum. I had an emergency surgery to remove the tumor. Following that, there was the diagnosis of the actual cancer, and then following that, I had 6.5 weeks of targeted radiation in conjunction with a low dose of chemotherapy. And after that, I then did 12 full rounds of chemotherapy at home via a pill administration. For now, we are monitoring with scans every 5 months. I finished treatment in July of 2020, and ever since then, my scans have been clear. And here's hoping that it stays that way. So when I was diagnosed, I had to take FMLA from work. I was working and living in Indiana at the time, but my treatment was through the clinic, which meant that I needed to be in Cleveland. I was out of work and living with my parents for about almost 6 months in 2019 for treatment. And they were responsible, because I couldn't drive from the seizure, for driving me to any treatments, to any support group, to the gym, pretty much anywhere I needed to go. The radiation therapy in particular, that was a lot of work because it was 7 o'clock in the morning for 6.5 weeks, Monday through Friday. Every morning my dad is getting up at 6 o'clock, 6:30. He's brushing snow off the car because it's February in Cleveland. He's getting the car running so that it's warm when I get in the car because I'm up at 5 o'clock taking the chemotherapy. He's getting the heated seat going and just trying to make it as unmiserable as possible for me. When we were on chemotherapy and I was back in Indiana, they were sending out a rotating group of somebody to come and watch me on chemotherapy because I couldn't always do much. So somebody in the family, usually one of my parents, sometimes an aunt or uncle or a sibling, was sacrificing a long weekend to come out to Indiana from Chicago or from Cleveland or from Toledo to come and help me at home. They'd be doing the meal prep and the cleaning. And there was a short in-between time when I was still early in treatment, but still not able to drive, where my parents fully uprooted and rented a house in South Bend where I was living so that they could drive me to work every day so that I could be back at work in my own apartment because I was clear to go back to work even though I couldn't drive. And you know, a lot of my family said that's just what family does, but I know so many people in this world whose family would not do that. So there's a lot of work that the caretakers put in that just doesn't get seen. I mean, that was enormous. Their entire lives became just about me, even though I was a full-grown adult at this time and had been living independently. And the Gathering Place, at least for my mom, really became a source of support. I didn't really start taking advantage of it until after I finished treatment, but for my mom during my treatment, it was an immense support. Pretty much very early on, she was coming to the Gathering Place to use the library, to look for resources, to learn more about my type of cancer, and especially taking advantage of some of like the meditation, the Reiki, especially the yoga classes. They were really critical to her because it's incredibly stressful as a parent, especially one that's got a lot of anxiety, to watch your kid go through this. For her, leaning on the Gathering Place as a source of resources, of support to help cope with the stress and the fear and just the general work and anxiety of being a caretaker for a kid with cancer was enormous. It was enormous, the benefit that it gave my mom. So the young adult program here, I think, is very unique. There's not a lot of them out that I have found. It's difficult to kind of figure out where to go, but the needs of the adolescent and young adult community in the cancer community is so unique. But the young adult group is so unique because it's people who are trying to date, trying to, you know, they're working full-time jobs. They might have had to leave their job because maybe it's something physically demanding and cancer rendered them unable to continue that career. It's just so unique because you're surrounded by other young folks who don't understand what it's like to have to sit and come to terms with your inevitable mortality. It's very different. Living with a chronic illness, because living as a cancer survivor is living as a chronic illness, it's something that most young folks don't understand. And if you're in a workspace, it's something that a lot of your coworkers might not understand. They don't understand why you've been anxious for 2 weeks because you have an MRI coming up and you're struggling to focus on your work meetings because you had a nightmare that you had 2 new tumors and now you can't sleep. There's so many unique situations for the young adult group that having other people in your age range that understand what you're going through and can relate and acutely empathize with the situation that you're in is enormous. I just had my scan this weekend, everything is fine, but I had group last Thursday, just a couple of days before the scan, and the relief I felt going home that night, it was just like this weight had been lifted because I got to talk about it to people who experienced it and understood it and related, and it was just such a relief to get it out there and have not only the support that the Gathering Place has for the caretakers and the support group, but also specifically for young adults who are surviving cancer or going through cancer treatment is so critical. I've made really good friends through the young adult group. They've got a great group of folks here, and it's just it's so unique and so beautiful to have. I'm so happy that they have it here. My future hopes are what pretty much anybody living like this would want. We want a cure. I think we want security, that somebody is looking out for us, that they are someday going to find a way to tell us, yes, you are cured. For my cancer in particular, there is at this time no cure. They can't take clearances during surgery, and so I will be getting 6-month MRIs until I have a recurrence or the science changes and we get new findings. I would just like to be at peace that there's an improvement on the way. I think we just want a cure. It's definitely very difficult, coming up on 30 and just knowing that I am basically babysitting my physical brain material until either it gives me more cancer or I kick the bucket. That's a difficult thing to cope with. I don't think anybody would say otherwise. I think in the future I would just want a cure. I'm Liz, I'm a survivor, and this is my story of hope.